So how should Christians look at war and the killing of our enemies? Let's talk about it today on the Non-Partisan Evangelical. A lot of talk going on with the execution of Mr. Soleimani, this Iranian man who was killed by American drones in Iraq. And a lot of people are pretty happy about it. In fact, I got a message from a gentleman that I assume is a Christian, and he said this. I'm sorry, I'm looking around the camera at the computer. He said, "So happy the Tehran terrorist got blown in the sewer." He said, "I'm glad he got his head blown off by our noble commander-in-chief." And he said, "Ha ha, they still can't find the buzzer's head." And then he noted Psalm 68:1 says, "Let God arise and his enemies be scattered." So the question is, as Christians, do we celebrate when our enemies are killed? And there are definitely verses in the Old Testament where God commands Israel to go kill their enemies and even kill the children and their livestock and everything else. But when we take this and then everything we read in the Bible has to come through the prism of how did Jesus react to these things and what did Jesus say about them? And there's a couple of really important things we can look at in that. But first, let me say, there's, as everybody's saying, no question this guy had done some bad things to American people, and in a lot of ways for this event, and when President Obama ordered the killing of Osama bin Laden, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Christians can say, "Hey, Mr. President Obama, Mr. President Trump, you did the right thing, you saved American people," and I can be at peace with that. Where I get uncomfortable is the celebration of the death. And so do we think God is doing backflips when Osama bin Laden or the Soleimani are killed? And I don't think God ever celebrates the death of humanity. And so I think we have to start to think about what is our reaction and our response as followers of God to that. And is it okay for us to hit the streets and chant USA when our enemies are killed? And I think the thing that's important about it are a couple of things. First off, when we start to have the discussion, what I hear a lot, if you start to ask questions like I'm asking, people are like, "So do you love terrorists? So do you love Americans being killed? So do you hate America?" And I don't think there's those two extremes that are the only choices. I think we can say, as Americans, it's actually our job to question what America does at times. We don't have a king who is an ultimate authority. We have law, and we say, does this really fit into our law? But not only our law, our moral character of who we are. And I think that's part of what being an American is all about. And so here's where I get concerned as a Christian when I look at how Jesus walked this out. In Matthew 26, Peter jumps up as Jesus is about to be illegally arrested and taken into a corrupt hearing so that he can be executed in an immoral and unlawful execution. Peter jumps up and grabs his sword and takes the ear off one of the guys coming to get Jesus. And Jesus stops him, says, "Peter, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. Put that thing away, and we're just going to go, and we'll be very self-sacrificing here and see what happens." And then another incident that I like to look at is in Luke chapter 9. A village rejects Jesus, and there's James and John, the sons of thunder, they're called, and they're like, "Jesus, we're going to call fire down from heaven on these guys." And Jesus, it says, rebuked them. He said, "Stop it. You don't know the mindset you're of right now. You're partnered with the Spirit, not from heaven." And he says this, "I did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them." And so I think you can start to look at the picture of who Jesus was and say, he was not necessarily looking to go conquer other worlds to create peace or to make things right, but he was saying, hey, service and sacrifice is where real power is and can really change things. And as Americans, we've always been sort of this mind that our military can make things right. And I think we need to start to question, like, hey, is that actually working? Is that proven? Really, since World War II, have we gone someplace and sort of bombed it and made it a better place? And I think that's questions that we can start to ask. Above all of that, I say, I just don't think God is ever thrilled when one of his creations is killed and destroyed. I think he can say, right call, but my heart still grieves for what was lost because I didn't come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And so I think as his followers, as God followers, or as people that follow the Bible, we should say, maybe this was the right call, but I'm still a little bit grieved that we ever get to a place where we have to kill people to bring about peace. And so I just wanted to share that as an opportunity to start to check our own hearts. Where am I? Am I believing that my personal safety, my personal comfort is so important that I'm willing to blow people out of the water to get it, either militarily as a country or in my role in my job to try to take somebody else out so I can get ahead and get that promotion? Are any of those things okay in the life that was modeled by Jesus? Something that I would encourage you to think about. Also, I want to encourage you to go online at the npepodcast.com website. Look at my new blog, my first blog for 2020. It's sort of my response to the responses of the Christianity Today editorial. That editorial was calling for President Trump's removal and really challenging Christians to think about what our support of party and political officials looks like. And I'd love for you to read my responses, my first blog of 2020, and check it all out there, because what I have to say is, hey, we're making some mistakes here. We're thinking good economy equals happy God. Is that really true? We're thinking that we're conflating civil issues with spiritual ones. Are we sure that God cares about taxes quite as much as we do? And we're also just fighting for this belief that we're supposed to codify biblical laws, and in doing that, then there will be favor and blessing on our country. And I think there's another way to look at that. So check out the blog at npepodcast.com. We got a mindset that's 50 years in the making that we need to start think about and maybe challenge just a little bit. So go to the website, npepodcast.com. There you can sign up for my insiders list. We've got cool stuff coming up here in 2020. We're going to be in people's homes, my wife and I, and just talk about what the Nonpartisan Evangelical is all about. We've got a millennial group coming up to discuss, hey, does your faith have to look like what your grandparents' faith looks like? And we're going to do a Vision 22 class that's going to talk about some of the history of race relations in the country, all of that coming up. And we're going to take communion together on a regular basis. So go check it out. Get on my insiders list, npepodcast.com, read the blog, and consider what we've had to talk about today. See you soon. Happy 2020.